Back in 2010, the failure to account for intangible investment in software made little difference to the productivity numbers, the authors reckon. But productivity has increasingly been understated. By the end of 2016, productivity growth was probably about 0.9 percentage points higher than official estimates suggested. This pattern has occurred before. In 1987, Robert Solow, another Nobel Prize winner, remarked that computers could be seen everywhere except the productivity statistics. 9 years later, American productivity growth began an acceleration, which evoked the golden age of the 1950s and 1960s. These processes are not always sexy. In the late 1990s, the soaring share prices of internet startups hogged the headlines. The fillip to productivity growth had other sources, like improvements in manufacturing techniques, better inventory management, and rationalization of logistics and production processes made possible by the digitization of firm records and the deployment of clever software. The J-curve provides a way to reconcile tech optimism and adoption of new technologies with lousy productivity statistics. The role of intangible investments in unlocking the potential of new technologies may also mean that the pandemic, despite its economic damage, has made a productivity boom more likely to develop. Office closures have forced firms to invest in digitization and automation, or to make better use of existing investments. Old analog habits could no longer be tolerated. Though it will not show up in any economic statistics, in 2020 executives around the world invested in the organizational overhauls needed to make new technologies work effectively. See Chart 2. Not all of these efforts will have led to productivity improvements. But as COVID-19 recedes, the firms which did transform their activities will retain and build on their new ways of doing things. The crisis forced change. Early evidence suggests that some transformations are very likely to stick, and that the pandemic quickened the pace of technology adoption. A survey of global firms conducted by the World Economic Forum this year found that more than 80% of employers intend to accelerate plans to digitize their processes and provide more opportunities for remote work, while 50% plan to accelerate automation of production tasks. About 43% expect changes like these to generate a net reduction in their workforces, a development which could pose labor market challenges, but which almost by definition implies improvements in productivity. Harder to assess is the possibility that the movement of so much work into the cloud could have productivity-boosting effects for national economies or at the global level. High housing and property costs in rich, productive cities have locked firms and workers out of places where they might have done more with less resources. If tech workers can more easily contribute to top firms while living in affordable cities away from America's coasts, say, then strict zoning rules in the Bay Area of California will become less of a bottleneck. Office space in San Francisco or London freed up by increases in remote work could be occupied by firms which really do need their workers to operate in close physical proximity. Beyond that, and politics permitting, the boost to distance education and telemedicine delivered by the pandemic could help drive a period of growth in services trade, and the achievement of economies of scale in sectors which have long proved resistant to productivity-boosting measures. None of this can be taken for granted. Making the most of new private sector investments in technology and know-how will require governments to engineer a rapid recovery in demand, to make complementary investments in public goods like broadband, and to focus on tackling the educational shortfalls so many students have suffered as a consequence of school closures. But the raw materials for a new productivity boom appear to be falling into place, in a way not seen for at least 2 decades. This year's darkness may in fact mean that dawn is just over the horizon.